Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. I haven't actually shot with a Canon R6 Mark III. It ships on November 25th, unless Canon delays it because it's too powerful and might collapse under its own magnificence. I also haven't shot with the R5 Mark II, so everything you're about to hear is based entirely on specs, logic, imagination, and the kind of late obsessive late night comparison spirals that make you eventually question your own humanity. Also, before I return to making videos that get approximately 12 views, the last video absolutely exploded and I'm still a bit shocked. The comment section turned into a small village. Some people loved the humor, some people hated the humor, but still left a comment anyway, which I deeply appreciate because you know what? Engagement is engagement, even if it's emotionally confusing. And since a bunch of those comments asked this exact comparison, here it is, the Canon R6 Mark III versus the Canon R5 Mark II. The Canon R6 Mark III is the new mid-range hybrid that is trying very hard not to be mid-range anymore. It has 32.5 megapixel sensor, shoots 40 frames per second, has improved IBIS, and does 7K video so crisp you could shave with it. The R5 Mark II, meanwhile, is the glamorous, expensive older sibling. It has 45 megapixel stacked sensor, which means it reads out data so quickly it practically sees the future. And because of that stacked sensor, the R5 Mark II has significantly less rolling shutter, making fast-moving objects look normal instead of stretched into terrifying noodles. If the R6 Mark III is a very good camera, the R5 Mark II is a camera that looks at you and says, yes, I cost more, and yes, you will respect me. Now, let's talk about frame rates. The R6 Mark III fires off 40 frames per second with electronic shutter. 40. That's enough to capture every micro emotion of a footballer's face as they argue with the referee. The R5 Mark II does 30 frames per second, which is still obscene, but slightly less obscene, like someone eating 8 slices of pizza instead of 10. But here's the twist. Because the R5 Mark II has a stacked sensor, those 30 frames per second come with far less distortion. In fast play, the R6 Mark III might give you more frames, but the R5 Mark II will give you frames where the ball stays perfectly round instead of subtly warping into the shape of a confused melon mid-flight. What about autofocus? Autofocus on both cameras is impressive, but the R5 Mark II pulls ahead with one trick that feels like sci-fi, eye control AF, where the camera tracks your eye in the viewfinder and it moves the focus point to whatever you're looking at. It's wild, it works, and it makes the R5 Mark II feel like it's reading your mind, although I'm not entirely convinced that every glance is a command. Sometimes I'm just looking at things. Still, it's worth mentioning because when it does work, it makes focus selection almost telepathic. The R6 Mark III, meanwhile, is also excellent, but slightly less psychic, choosing not to stare into your soul or interpret your eye movements. What it does have, though, is a noticeably stronger pre-shooting mode. You see, both cameras can buffer images before you fully press the shutter, but the R6 Mark III captures a longer slice of time, making it more reliable for unpredictable moments. So, if something unexpected happens, say a footballer tripping over their own shoelaces, the R6 Mark III is more likely to have grabbed the moment already. Almost like it's gently mocking your human reaction time, while the R5 Mark II just gives you a polite half-second head start. Moving on, both cameras use the same BG R20 battery grip, which is great. It means you get longer battery life, proper portrait orientation controls, and much better balance with long telephoto lenses, instead of holding the camera like it's a medieval crossbow that's actively plotting to tip you over. But the R5 Mark II says, actually, you know what? I have two more, because of course I do. A cooling grip for video work, because shooting 8K RAW is basically like placing a small sun inside your camera. A grip with a full Ethernet port, so you can literally plug your camera into the internet like it's 2004. And this is for photographers who don't just shoot sports, they upload images to an editor in real time while still on the sideline, possibly during a tornado. The R6 Mark III does not have these. It's sensible. It expects you to manage your thermals like a normal adult. What about memory cards? Complete type. Both cameras use a CF Express and SD. No surprises, no plot twists. IBIS? Complete draw again. Both cameras claim up to 8.5 stops of stabilization numbers, so large they're starting to drift into science fiction territory. If this trend keeps going, by 2030 we'll be shooting a 20-second handheld exposures from the back of a moving bus while eating a sandwich. Now let's talk about the price situation, also known as emotional damage. The R6 Mark III costs less by a noticeable margin, especially once the R5 Mark II start appearing from photographers who panic upgraded despite already owning 3 high-end bodies. A used R5 Mark II will absolutely drop in price compared to new, obviously, but it is still more expensive than the R6 Mark III, so the question is not which is better, it's how much of my dignity am I willing to trade for more megapixels and a faster readout speed. So when it comes down to actually picking one, here's the simplest way I think to make your decision without spiraling into an existential crisis. Choose the R5 Mark II if you want the best autofocus Canon currently makes, bar the R1. You want the least rolling shutter thanks to the stacked sensor. You shoot fast action and you want subjects to look like humans, not noodles. You want 45 megapixels and crop power that turns every lens into a telescope. And you need 3 battery grips because obviously. Choose the R6 Mark III if you want 40 frames per second and you don't mind a bit of rolling shutter wobble. You want incredible value. You love pre-shooting because you react to life like a startled potato. You want 32.5 megapixels, enough resolution to crop but not enough to make Lightroom explode. And you do not care about Ethernet grips, because why would you? Now, the small differences people will start big arguments over. First, the EVF. The R6 Mark III has a perfectly good 3.69 million dot viewfinder, sharp enough to see the action, your subject and your financial regrets. But the R5 Mark II goes bigger, 5.6 million dot EVF that looks so crisp you can practically see the atoms of a footballer's eyelashes. Does it make you a better photographer? Absolutely not. Does it make you feel like one? Well, unfortunately, yes. And then there's the top LCD, which Canon only installs on cameras when they want you to feel important. The R5 Mark II gets that classic little status screen that lets you check settings at a glance, while the R6 Mark III makes you press buttons like the 14th century peasant. One is elegant, one is functional. Both take pictures. Only one triggers online debates measured in gigabytes of angry comments. Ergonomics, the R5 Mark II sneaks in premium touches like the smart controller, the tiny AF selection surface on the joystick that lets you move the focus point with a gentle thumb telepathy. Once you get used to it, every other camera feels like trying to operate a forklift with oven mitts. The R6 Mark III sticks to a traditional joystick that works just fine, unless you've tasted the forbidden luxury of the R5 Mark II's thumb magic. And finally, for anyone still confused, yes, both cameras do have a mechanical shutter that shoots 12 frames per second because Canon knows that photographers, well, they're emotionally fragile and they need a reassuring clickety-clack to feel alive. The stacked R5 Mark II just gives you a more cleaner electronic shutter option at 30 frames per second with way less rolling shutter, while the R6 Mark III replies with, fine, I'll do 40 frames per second, but your sprinters might look like they're melting. So, which one should you buy? Well, if you're a working pro who shoots high-speed action and absolutely cannot tolerate rolling shutter, missed eyes, or autofocus that isn't borderline telepathic, the R5 Mark II is a clear winner. If you want 90 to 95% of that performance but with money left over for rent, groceries, and maybe a lens that isn't held together with gaffer tape, the R6 Mark III is the smart move. Both are excellent. Both can do incredible work. Both will expose your lack of compositional talent equally, because in the end, it's not the camera that creates the magic. It's you. Also the lens, and the lighting, and the subject, and the autofocus, and the weather. But mostly you, probably. Take care, guys. Stay safe, and may your buffer never fill and your roller shutter never roll.